we are talking about ransomware again because we still see quite a lot of such attacks. So unfortunately, we still have to talk about it. And also, usually when we're talking about such attacks, we don't see many networks that have good team, good monitoring, good security solutions and login. So in most cases, that's why they are victims of such attacks. So it's quite good skill to have understanding on how to perform incident response engagement and investigate such attacks, and you don't have almost anything. Okay, so let's start from introduction. My name is Oleg Skulkin. Currently, I'm head of cyber threat intelligence at BI.ZONE. We collect information and tracking quite a lot of threat actors, including those who involved in human-operated ransomware attacks, of course. Also, we describe all those tactics, techniques, and procedures, collect indicators, etc. But at the same time, kind of last 10 years, I spent doing incident response. I used to be the head of global DFIR team at Group IB. And so I was engaged in many incidents related to ransomware, I think a few hundred. So I definitely have something to share, some insights and some experience. This talk is going to be a bit general, but still, if you are not a big expert in ransomware and all this, I'm sure you'll find some useful insights. Also, I'm author and co-author of a few books like Practical Mobile Forensics and Incident Response Techniques for Ransomware Attacks. So if you voted for the second one at Forensic Focus Awards, thanks a lot. And of course, I'm author and co-author of many threat research reports, including those related to ransomware gangs. So if you're interested in threat research, you may Google and find some pretty interesting information. Okay, so why we are talking about ransomware again? Because first of all, big game hunting makes a comeback. So we are seeing more and more groups continuing to attack really big companies, and they have quite huge ransom demands. And the worst thing is that they still receive money, and that's why we are seeing more and more of such attacks. So if I'm talking about statistics, so here you can see that just through June 2023, they earned a lot of money, 4.9 million. So if we are talking about some groups, on the slide, you can see that, for example, median payment for Blockbuster, quite notorious gang, is 147,000, for Black Cat even more, and for Club, due to the fact that they even have access or have team members who can write exploits for zero-day vulnerabilities like Move It, they earn even more. So as you can see, they still can earn a lot of money. So they have kind of blood to continue their engagements. They can hire new affiliates, and that's why, unfortunately, we see more and more, and they still successful. So if you look through the book I mentioned, Incident Response Technique for Ransomware Attacks, you already seen this. So this is the unified ransomware kill chain. So before starting to talk about incident response itself, let's just look through the kill chain that's typical for this kind of attacks. So of course, first of all, the threat actors need to gain initial access to the network. Currently, in many cases, they may use even valid accounts because they can, for example, buy such access from initial access brokers, or for example, they can buy stealer logs and they can get some valid credentials from this. Also, if we are talking about not very advanced attacks, and there are quite a lot of such attacks as well, maybe such threat actors earn not that much, but still they may impact business a lot. So such threat actors usually prefer to just perform brute force attacks against public facing Adobe servers, or just again buy such accesses on the underground markets. Also, many threat actors use various bots like MTED, IcedID, etc. Very popular ones, again, to gain initial access, to run additional payloads like Cobalt Strike, Sliver, etc. So once they get initial access, they may download additional tools for network discovery, for privilege escalation, for credential access. So during the second stage, that's establishing foothold, they perform various activities that will allow them to move laterally. Again, it may be privilege escalation if they need it. For example, in some cases, they may already have quite privileged credentials, so all they need is just to connect, for example, via VPN and keep going. In other cases, they need escalate privileges, then download additional tools, for example, to dump LSAS or to run some camera roasting, etc. It depends on the threat actor, it depends on their skills, and it depends, of course, on the network and security controls. Once they get proper credentials, they move to the next stage. There's network discovery. Again, here we can see various legit tools like AD-Find, like AD Explorer, or some very common network scanners like Soft Perfect Network Scanner. That's all-time favorite for lots of ransomware gangs or some ransomware as a service affiliates. So once they have understanding where they are, what's the network, how to move laterally, they decide where they want to go. So they try to discover key assets. For example, these may be assets for additional credential dumping. These may be assets for data exfiltration. And as most of you know, most of the threat actors that are currently engaged in human-operated ransomware attacks, they exfiltrate data. They not only deploy ransomware, but before it, they exfiltrate data. So they need to find proper hosts, some file servers, or maybe some computers that belong to top management or other personnel that may have access to sensitive data that may help them to get money from the victim. So once they get the understanding of where to go, they start going. So they move to the network propagation stage. Once they find hosts, they want to exfiltrate data. So they exfiltrate data. So that's the next stage. Once they exfiltrate all the data, and that's very important because when they start exfiltrating, some threat actors exfiltrate just small amount of data, just a few gigabytes, and that's it. While others may exfiltrate up to terabytes of data. And if threat actors want to exfiltrate that much of data, they need to spend a lot of time in the network. And during this time, they still may be detected. But again, it's not our case, because as you remember, they are talking about network. Their companies don't have monitoring, don't have logging, don't have advanced tools like EDRs, XDRs, and all this. So unfortunately for such organizations, they very rare can detect such activity. And usually what they detect is just a ransom note on the desktop, unfortunately. So still, once data is exfiltrated, they need to prepare the network for ransomware deployment, because still, even Such networks without login and advanced security solutions, they still have at least antivirus software, at least Windows Defender, and still threat actors need to disable such software so they can easily deploy ransomware. Also, many organizations have backups, and if threat actors don't do the backups, then organization may recover data using those backups, and it's not the best way for them. So also they stop the antivirus software, they delete backups, and once everything is done, now they're ready to deploy ransomware. Again, there are a lot of techniques on how to deploy it. Some threat actors use just RDP. Again, those not very skilled threat actors, they just jump from one host to another, drop ransomware executable, double click it, and that's it. If we are talking about more advanced examples, many of them just use group policy modification to create scheduled tasks and execute the ransomware payload. So once all of this are done and data is exfiltrated, ransomware is deployed, then they move to the last stage, that's extortion. So first of all, of course, they offer their victim the decryptor so they can recover the data. Also, they ask their victim for money for removing exfiltrated data. Also, they may perform DDoS attacks. They may even call their customers. So currently, there are a lot of various ways that ransomware gangs and affiliates of ransomware as a service programs use for extortion. So that's it. Again, the kill chain is quite common, and I think almost any modern human-operated ransomware attack can be mapped to this unified ransomware kill chain. Okay, so if we're talking about techniques, they are quite common. So you may ask me, Oleg, why are you showing us a heat map from 2022? And I have the answer, because if we look at modern attacks that we have currently, we can see that they are almost the same. So techniques that most of the threat actors who involved in such attacks, they merged a lot, first of all, because back in the day, in 2019 and 2020, we can divide groups based on their TTPs. But now, because many groups, they are part of ransomware as a service programs. So some affiliates jump from one program to another program, etc., etc., etc. So they share their experience. And now many gangs use very similar tactics, techniques, and procedures during their attacks. So, and also, if you look at the heat map, yes, these techniques are quite common, but they still very, very effective. And as they are very, very effective, threat actors don't need to create something very new, because they still have good old stuff that works fine. So that's it. Okay, let's move forward. So let's talk a bit about tools that you usually see during incident response engagements if we are talking about human-operated ransomware attacks. So first of all, many gangs use popular C2 frameworks. Not all of them, because, for example, if you ask your red team about C2 frameworks, I think many of them will name a lot of various C2 frameworks. But if we are talking real-world adversaries, then there are not a lot of them that we commonly see, and especially during incident response engagement for ransomware. So first of all, Cobalt Strike, of course, very common, still easy detectable. But again, if you remember, we are talking about networks without a lot of security software and without monitoring. So If you don't monitor, then threat actors can easily use even such easy detectable stuff like Cobalt Strike, like Metasploit, like Empire, that is even better for detection. And also they try some new things as well. For example, Sliver. It's a bit harder to detect, but still modern security solution can easily detect it. Again, talking about reconnaissance, as I already mentioned, threat actors use a lot of common legitimate tools like advanced IP scanner, advanced pod scanner, soft perfect network scanner. I think any incident response engagement, then they're talking about ransomware. If you look through evidence of execution, we'll talk about it a bit later, you'll see at least some of these tools if they're talking about reconnaissance. If we're talking about a bit more advanced gangs, then you can see tools like SharpHound, like AD Recon, like AD Find. We also may mention something like AD Explorer. So some tools may be already in the environment, and threat actors, they may see it and they may want to blend with it. So they'll be using the same tools that environment already have. So kind of leaving out the land stuff. So talking about credential dumping, again, it's very common tools. Mimikatz, yes, and in many cases, threat actors just download it from GitHub because they already disabled antivirus software, for example, and now they can use anything they want. So they just click browser button, go to GitHub, or just Google for Mimikatz and download it. It's very common, really. Also, tools like BI.ZONE, they may use ProcDump just to dump LSAS and exfiltrate it using the same browser, by the way, and extract credentials on their side, not on the host that they compromise. Exfiltration, again, very common tools. Some gangs nowadays have their custom tools, of course, but still many use very common like ArcClone, WinSTP, Mega, FileZilla, and all that. Remote access tools like AnyDesk, TeamViewer, Terra, and others, also very common. Some guys use, again, tools to blend with the environment, and they use those that are already in the environment. Others use those that they like. And malware, yeah. Some guys use common bots, not lots of gangs, but still some of them may use QBot, IcedID, MRTET, and then some other bots to gain initial access. And not only, by the way. Okay, so then they're talking about your engagement. So where you should start? It's a very good question. So in many cases, you can start from a host, from an encrypted host, because you want to understand who you're dealing with, right? So because if you're understanding which group is it, or which ransomware service program, you may obtain more information about tactics, techniques, and procedures, about tools, maybe some indicators, and it will make your incident response engagement much easier. So again, it's not the best idea to dig very deep in just one encrypted host, because usually it's just ransomware sample and nothing else, because usually they deploy ransomware enterprise-wide. So it's a very good point to remember. So don't focus much on just one host in the beginning. You should understand if the threat actors still have access to the whole network. So next thing, they are very noisy. And if you still have antivirus, and maybe you still have some server with all antivirus logs, you may look through and check if maybe there are some good alerts related to Cobalt Strike, related to Mimikatz, related to some other tools that are very common to this group, or just to ransomware threat landscape. This is a very good point as well. And also, of course, it's public facing servers. If you already obtained some information about what organizations have public facing RDP server or some exchange server and other things that you commonly see in threat reporting related to ransomware. And again, if you already understood what group are you dealing with, then it may be quite easy. For example, we are talking about BlackBuster, and you just seen reports from your threat intelligence provider on just from some public resources that this group is exploiting exchange servers or some other public facing servers, or you face some Phobos ransomware and they commonly brute force RDP servers, and you deal with this kind of ransomware and your organization have public facing RDP server, most likely then got access via it. So again, quite easy thing. So again, we need to understand who are we dealing with to gain more information about threat actor, about their tools, techniques, procedures, etc., so we can understand what to look for during our forensic analysis. So how to do it? So first of all, it may be extremely easy. Some gangs, they're like, okay, here is ransom note, we are logbit, here is a website. So you immediately understand who you're dealing with. It's really easy. Some even change wallpaper and they provide all information you need to start your threat intelligence journey, for example, before you start your investigation. Other things, for example, file extensions. Some groups, they're kind of brands nowadays. So again, I mentioned BlackBuster already. And for example, if I'm talking about BlackBuster, you may see that they can add a very, very common extension like Basta. And you have like Black Square. And you can understand that most likely is BlackBuster. Okay, again, there are some leaks like Logbit Builder leaked, and many gangs started to reuse it and create their own Logbit ransomware payload. So maybe it's not the same Logbit, but anyway, extensions may help you a lot as well. Again, it's not always works. Sometimes there are no good ransom notes, no good extensions, maybe just random, so it's hard to understand. So you may use YAR rules. Where to get it? For example, one of my friends, Andrew Zhdanov, he researches ransomware a lot, and he publishes at his GitHub a lot of YAR rules that help you to detect and understand what ransomware family you are dealing with. Also, he publishes a lot of tools, even decryptors for some ransomware families. So it's a very, very good source to get YAR rules and to use it for fast detection. So, okay, you have a network, you don't have SAM, you don't have EDR, etc. So you need to collect something. You definitely don't want to collect image from every host because you may have 6,000 hosts, and it's maybe a bit hard and a long way to collect and then to analyze. So you need to collect not much data, but small data points, but from many, many, many hosts. So you can understand here, threat actors did this, there, that, etc. So if we are talking about my experience, this is my favorite small things that I prefer to collect. First of all, Chimcache and Demcache, very well-known evidence of execution sources. So it's easy to parse, it's easy to filter and analyze. You may pre-create some keyword lists, for example, and use common tools like Magnet Cyber, etc., to search very fast for common tools that are used by threat actors. Also, I love to collect PowerShell-related events because still many gangs use PowerShell a lot. Maybe not as part of C2 frameworks like Cobalt Strike, PowerShell, Empire, etc. But still, they may use a lot of commandlets for reconnaissance, etc. So you'll definitely find a lot of useful stuff there. And of course, it's event ID 7045 from system. It's a gold mine. In any engagement, you'll find a lot of stuff there because threat actors use a lot of C2 frameworks, as you already know, and they love to move laterally via creating new services, etc., etc. So you'll definitely find a lot. And if you have just this small amount of artifact sources, you still can cover a lot of stuff. Of course, you'll need to maybe even collect images from some hosts, but still you need to collect small data sets from almost everything, so you can so you won't skip any, and threat actors won't use this to get back. So where to look? Some common places for bad things. Of course, it's app data, especially if you're talking about bots like Amatet, etc. Program data, the same. You can find beacons and malware there very often. Temp folders, look for LSAS dumps, look for some tools that threat actors download. The same can be said about public folder, logs, and Intel. Again, very common folders for Cobalt Strike beacons and other tools that threat actors may use. And if we are talking about guys who are using RDP brute force to gain access, then they love folders like videos, picture, documents, etc. in compromised account user profile. But still, if you want to dig deeper, you can. So again, some common things you may want additional evidence of execution. Don't use only common things. Sometimes you can find very interesting things in not common evidence of execution sources like syscache. Also, threat actors may just drop tools, not execute them. So you may not find it in shimcache or mcache. So you still may need to analyze file system. Some additional event logs like RDP logs, as RDP is used very, very commonly for lateral movement, and etc. Browser data, again, they can download tools, they can upload data or upload some dumps. That's via web browser, so don't forget to check it. I can't say that a lot of threat actors focus on persistence, but still, if we're talking about malware like Qbot, Amatet, etc., then services, run keys, scheduled tasks, some common persistent mechanisms, yes, they used, but usually not something advanced. Some application logs, for example, for software that is used for remote access, they may help you as well. Still, even networks without login and without advanced security solution may have at least something like VPN logs, some proxy logs, firewall logs, maybe just for a few hours, but still it may be useful. And if you are talking about lateral movement, don't forget about user access logs. This is really a gold mine because in many organizations that face ransomware attacks, they don't have a very long log in security, and so it's extremely hard to reconstruct lateral movement, and user access logs may be your last chance. So what we've learned today, so first of all, you need to know your adversary. So don't forget to use CyberThreat to collect information about TTP tools, etc. It will make your incident response engagement much easier. Start from key artifact sources. Don't try to image everything, don't try to collect everything, because if you collect too many artifact sources, you'll take a very long time to parse and a very long time to analyze. So it may be a very daunting task. And even in a network without anything, operating systems still provide you a lot of data. You just need to properly use it to be successful. So I think that's it. Thanks a lot for joining my talk. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.